Well, hello everyone, and welcome to another talk with me and Joanna. Not sure how long this one's going to go exactly, but this is more impromptu. We have just seen the movie The King's Man, and knowing some of the history that was already, in World War One, pre World War One, all that, knowing that the Mosen were involved in all of those events, uh, leading up to even in going into World War II. I saw this movie as entirely accurate to not only what people know as the regular history, but also to the Mosen history as well, and their involvement in uh, in the First World War and in the Second World War. The reason being, I'll give just a little bit of backstory there, even though we did do a lifting episode on the Mosen once. They were able to come to Earth when a group from their own solar system in the Cassiopeia solar system broke treaty and came to aid the Germans. They did so in World War One, and they definitely did so in World War Two. Even so much as there was a Nazi facility in World War Two that was created in the shape of a W as more of a way to call out to this dark Cassiopeian group. They're from a planet called Dershin, and Isaac calls them dark shits all the time. He just plays on their name, but they gave Nazis an upgrade on weapons capacity and also empire building during World War II. That's how they unified Germany in 4 short years, and were able to accomplish what they accomplished along with the Orions and the Draco. But that's not the part where we were going to touch on. World War One time frame. In the movie, they depict not only uh, Ralph Fiennes' character as being this nobleman who is a pacifist on the outside, but in the inside, he's more like the Mosen mentality. It's kind of like almost a Batman Bruce Wayne type of relationship eventually. And you see the formation of the Kingsmen in the previous movies, who in the first movies depicted not only their type of technology, then the underground network that Valiant Thor pointed out to us then, but then they also pointed out the dark side of things like the Cabal and some in the second movie and some of the more darker cannibalistic satanic type of behavior. And they even made reference to some satanic stuff in the first one. But this particular movie, as I'm watching this, I won't give away the entire thing, but I will say that the Mosen involvement, not only the outfits and the uniforms they had in World War II, the helmets that you saw the soldiers have, that was Mosen influence because they themselves brought that from their own solar system. It was a merging between some of their style and some of the Untumban style, I found out. It was also the weapons technology, the guns, some of the bolt action weapons. I'm not privy on all of the gun details, but I do know the upgrades to the weapons that took place in World War One and World War II were Mosen inspired, and as well as when the Germans got certain weapons upgrades, the Mosen had to upgrade the American and British forces. Eventually, this got the Americans involved in the entire war. This was also some of their doing. The way they depict people doing things in the background, out of sight, out of mind, not necessarily taking credit for any heroics or anything like that. This happens literally every day, even now. With the Mosen working in the background, they themselves do these types of actions all the time. And also, Valiant Thor's people do this more or less in the forefront by doing slow drip in what we've talked about many times in academics, politics, private sector now, and religion. So they do that route where they slow drip the information. The Mosen in the background do the fighting. Valiant Thor always said that he was more the planner or strategist, and they were more the warriors, so the fighters. So they tend to work in conjunction with each other. Since the Venusians are from this system, Mosen are from outside, they had to coordinate with Venusian colonies. But this is the type of stuff that goes on the background. a message that was more for myself in this, I have to say, though, was it was basically being shown to me that things like that are going on every day. We always say there's wars and battles going on every day. And this was basically the origin of some of those in the modern era, going into maybe the 19th and 20th centuries, the end of the 19th, going into the 20th century. Their involvement in actually being the sentries and the sentinels in the background. And also a personal message for myself, because I've been at this stage where, I've wanted to, help them out in certain ways, and remembering, how I used to be in other lifetimes, other expressions. And they were reminding me that my lane is what I'm doing, and that I wouldn't want to be a part of what they're a part of on a regular basis. It's like how it was depicted, Ralph Fiennes and his son's character in it, where one was, they were basically saying to me in the car on the way here, there was a comparison between the reality and the glorification of war. And they were basically saying that there's things that I personally don't even know about at the moment that they have to keep silent. That I was seeing things more from the viewpoint of the son rather than the father, and they were seeing from viewpoint from the father. So it was like, even though I know about the details, that's more the logistics side of it rather than the action side of it.
And we do this all the time, because we oftentimes fade into our own imagination in order to gain control of something, in order to overcome something. We make warrior glorification stances where you always come out top, you always are smarter than, you always win, you always, and again that plays into, let's call it the glorification of war, if that's what you're referring to it as a normal human response for trying to gain control, confidence, whatever. And so encouraging that thought and then trying to get that, let's say, thought to play out, what I mean, is that glorification of war. Or again, even of a different time frame, like Egypt or other periods of time, or Atlantis or whatever, where people stick themselves in there, try to glorify it, not realizing that you really don't want to bring those energies back. But it's happened. And I think this is a very interesting movie, because I think it really, again, shows, especially in comparison, because this is going on with a lot of people's thought right now with what's going on in the USA. Who's really in control? Who's really driving things? Who's really manipulating things? Who's really doing things?
And who's counterbalancing those manipulations?
Right. And so I gave it kind of 2 thumbs up to kind of watch, to kind of then, understand and give consideration, because I do think some of the movies are telling truths that consider that there's something real about this, and it's playing out right here and now under all of our noses on a daily basis, that most people cannot even comprehend, a lot of what's really going on. So I think it was an excellent movie, just not just a fantasy movie or whatever, but an excellent movie if people are, and I think well timed, because I think that right now with everybody questioning things, it's going to add to their pondering of
what's going on in the background.
What's really going on, which I think is a good thing.
Yes, and I find it interesting that the main bad guy in it is a Scotsman. You just hear him basically the whole time, the shadows in the background. That was representing the Cabal, Illuminati, and the origins of Scottish Masonry is what that was representing. At least in my opinion, that's what they were trying to show in that. And also they were showing that there was the one could say, it was like the one side, the glorification of war, one side, the reality. And they were showing both. They were showing it in an action format, what you'd expect and want out of a movie, but they were also showing what the reality of it is. And they were putting those things side by side. They were also pointing out, and I believe the Mosen were pointing out in that movie, that both sides of that had to be represented, and also of course, people only respond to a hero and a villain, even though that's an old writing style that has been going on for ages. But at the same time, you don't know who the heroes and the villains truly are, because they had, I'm not going to ruin the movie, but they did have a mole in each and every government that was on the planet. Basically, anybody that was of significant power, they had a mole in there, or they tried to mentally manipulate or verbally manipulate the leader of a particular country. Like Kaiser Wilhelm, they just basically said, "Oh, your cousin poked fun at you when you were a child." They started using that form of manipulation. With Rasputin, it was the Russian government where he was manipulating the family and just making them think he was some kind of messenger of God, which in all actuality that was true. They depicted that correctly with Rasputin. And I always found out that a long time ago, I found out Rasputin was not completely human either. I found that out a long time ago in doing sessions. So that he was of some ET opposing side, but at the same time, he knew how to mentally manipulate people, regardless.
But the point is,
yeah.
is that, again, the concept of having people in multiple places.
And having and also that they showed basically how the cabal operate, where they have these people in key places to manipulate those particular governments to commit certain actions. This also represented, even though they showed it was one cohesive group, and each group member had their own like signet and their own like animal they were portraying on their rings. Essentially, they were. It's not that as cohesive. It was essentially representing the cabal factions and the way they operate in governments around the world to get a constant state of conflict throughout the world. Then you had the counterbalance, which is eventually the origin of the Kingsmen in the movies, which there's some of our people that are more white-hatted, and you have the Mosen, and you have some of the Venusian colonies members in that particular circle. This is even as I'm talking, I'm getting kind of mind screwed up here, but because I remember at the theater when we were leaving, there were multitudes of soldiers around, Mosen around all over the place. I believe it's because there was somebody that did not want that comparison to take place with somebody that knew what they were actually looking at. And this is yeah, I'm even getting it right now, even at the house here. So this is I know there's been somebody speaking to me since I was coming home. The bad guys were trying to get me to not even do a recording. I was originally going to sit at the theater and say something like we did the Eternals recording, but this was something that was more meant for here. And this is it was not the bad guys that said no record. You just meant not there. Oh, I thought this was okay. That's my mistake. Then this is meaning that they didn't want it done in that lap. Okay, and why? Because in the movie there were also codes of not only trying to get people to access their own inner hero, but find the lane or area that they were good at to actually engage in this silent war that's going on right now. Meaning that even in the positions we hold, us or anybody else, they're still doing their part by staying in the lane that they've been allocated or allocated themselves, both, to be able to play their part in this counterbalance, is what you're trying to tell me. Now, this is coming from a soldier warrior perspective, but I do believe they're correct in this. He said, it's not so cut and dry, say, as the movie, aiming at one bad guy or set of bad guys. It's not so cut and dry. They wish it was that cut and dry. But they're saying they make it look simple, like in the movie They Live, for instance. They're like, it was only one antenna that controlled the entire planet with the mind control, and that's also what they put in one of the Kingsman movies. They showed the binary network mind control in the very first movie, that the cabal agenda, them wanting to cull down people. They added that into the very first movie in a very very large way in the very first Kingsman movie, but this one showed more of the beginnings of it, and they are oof, they're basically so that got mind wiped there, man.
Well,
Wow.
again,
Oh,
the beginnings of a fantasy intelligent group, because I can
uh-huh.
guarantee you that these concepts were going on long before World War One,
Yes, they
which is
were.
what,
Yes,
but again, so we're
even in the
not
frontier
trying to
days and
say
everything.
there's history, all this accurate history. It's the
The
concepts of
concept.
these players being on I call it the chessboard. It's
Yeah.
the concept of these types of players being on the chessboard
Yes.
that I think it's,
That was
really,
the message there.
yeah,
Yes.
it's really more helpful to see, but don't take it literally.
Yeah, don't take it literally, even though it's a fantasy story,
Yeah.
and there was no group called the Kingsmen, there never has been, but it's they were characterizing that particular concept in more of an allegorical group that existed. And they also compared it to the Knights of Camelot as well, which also goes back to the whole White Knight premise of counterbalancing manipulations in time as well from some of the Orion forces that are out there. So that kind of in its own way was loosely put in there as well. So obviously somebody knew to compare it to that to some extent. But whoa, what? Ah, who is it that I'm speaking to, please? Guy in a World War I captain's uniform, I want to say. You British or American? British or American? British. Oh, wow, that is some interference. Is that who you're fighting? Yes. Yeah, that looks like you're fighting Germans even now. Yes. I could have swore I saw a German uniform somewhere in there as well. But uh but this one that you have with you is not a bad guy. Okay. Why or how rather? You're attempting to counterbalance German efforts out in the galaxy as well. Okay. Who's the captain that's been communicating with me that didn't want me to record it a lot? It's hard to hear you. Say, why is the channel you right now? Because somebody does not want us to compare this information. Ooh. Okay, I need to hear your name one more time. Did you say your name was Nelson? I'm not buying that because you could have pulled that out of my own head from one of my past life connections.
It doesn't feel good.
No, I'm not buying that. Sorry. Uh, I'm sensing the major German interference at the moment. So any benevolent Mosen, I will give a message that you wish me to give, but
I agree. I wouldn't channel.
no, I'm not going to. But ooh, I'm seeing German uniforms even from World War One and Two here. Okay, what do you want? Speak English. I don't speak German. They're from the the battleship in space. What's the name of it? Hmm? Come on, you guys want to brag. What's the name of it? Really? You got to name your ships all like epic tales, don't you? Like it's like Iron Fist or some shit like that.
I just feel they're trying to distract.
Yeah,
Honestly.
okay.
So I mean, I think the interesting point, and we're not going there with these guys because
No.
this isn't. This is just
The
distraction.
Mosen are obviously around, but these guys,
Yeah,
they're arm wrestling back and forth
That's
here.
fine because we're not going to listen to them. But I think the interesting thing about all of this, and again, even in the movie, when you think about these pieces that are on the chessboard, it's the poor regular human, the poor regular Joe, who gets spun up into these games basically that are being played to either harvest energies or do something or gain resources or do something. And so, wars and different things are always put into play for someone else's benefit. And it's just the regular Joe who gets caught up in the dynamics of the true horrors of it. And so, I think it's an interesting concept that could potentially play out all over the place, even now, even within, ships or whatever, if you have people that are still whammied by mind control or, innocent pawns that were pulled, I say, into the secret space program to again be at war for someone else's bidding.
Yeah.
It just plays out over and over again, these same types of scenarios that are not truly for the benefit of the average human at all, never have been, but somebody else's agenda. And that will play out over and over and over again. If you can be mind controlled, you can certainly be made to believe in a particular agenda, but it may not be if you were left on your own and you really had proper information that you would ever want to be a part of. It would seem utterly ridiculous to do things like this. And again, the concept of taking away resources, and it was a quick statement made in the movie. A lot of people will miss it, where it was like, good, we've utilized all their resources. So again,
taking resources from each other so that the people suffer as a result.
The people suffer as well as maybe a faction starts to suffer. And then they become reliant on the hierarchy above them, who is unseen, unheard, who has the resources.
Yes.
So it becomes, this whack-a-mole, and control, and who has resources, and what do we need to do to now get them? And, we made bad decisions, but they didn't know they were necessarily tricked to make those bad decisions. Now, how are we going to get back what we need, who we have to deal with? And these things have been played out in all kinds of movies to let it could be the intermediary arms dealer who's causing the war to, make himself be valuable. But I mean, it's just a good movie to give the continuation of these types of concepts for people to think about. And, this little drama that's going on right now is really irrelevant to the conversation. And we're not going to try to buy into now getting people hyped up over what I think you're going to try to make people believe there's certain fake wars that aren't really occurring. There's enough that really are. So we're not going to go there in that drama with you.
Yes, so the Mosen fight them all the time, but leave it to the Germans to try to be the glorifiers of this and have everything in an epic fashion.
And again, this is a perfect example of trying to see if there's someone out there with something relevant to have. And it all comes down to, can they control your minds to even get you to go off in a path with them that every ounce of you feels discernment wise is like, this doesn't feel good. And again, if it doesn't feel good, don't go there.
Nope.
You have to really make very strong discernment skills of either, if you're, it's like, them's a lot of words coming out of your mouth, but my discernment says it means absolute crap. And so, you can drop those words all you want, but you're not going to, convince me. And sometimes, again, to keep the peace, you may entertain hearing somebody as a channeler just to let them get their stuff out, wish them a nice day, and then don't do anything with the information because it's really a load of crap. Yeah. And, we're not going to go there. So, you
Mhm.
know, I don't know. That's how I feel about
Oh
what's going
yeah.
on.
Oh well, yes. Even though I can still feel the Mosen around, but the Germans or the space Germans have kind of not entrenched themselves; they're just being idiots.
They just are, and they're putting a lot of high pressure our way.
Yeah, it's a lot of compression this way because they didn't want that premise of the movie and this premise out that there are people in the background, not in a savior sort of way. Valiant Thor's people always wanted me to say this as well, not in a savior sort of way, but there are those that also the main cruxes of this is that these two factions are of equal power. They this along with the ones from Cassiopeia that helped these Germans get to the position that they're in now. You have the Mosen that are of equal power, and that they can't just sweep through here and have this done in a day. That's also the main premise.
Thus, they don't know the outcome.
They
And
don't know the
I think
outcome.
that's really important. That was also mentioned in the movie about, you know, changes that occur. Now, what do you do?
Mhm.
Plan A, plan B, plan C. So just, you know, remember that as far as, again, what can humanity do? Well, they put the co-creative powers and energies out to basically not accept it, to say no and mean it, not hope, not pray, you know, but to actually
Actively
mean it and
change things.
actually mean it and there not be another option. So no, we're not going to participate. No, humanity is not going to be dragged under the rug. The yes is that humanity is seeing things more clearly and will continue to grow and see things more clearly. And people will learn to put out their co-creative skills as they're doing now and as they get better at it day by day, to actually put a larger torsion field out against some of the stuff where they're being manipulated. And that is the way it's supposed to be. And it will be, and it is currently. But I like the fact when we see these movies come out that I like the idea of these stories that necessarily aren't historical fact, but they bring out premises, and especially when timing is good, that you can really think about what's being said and, you know, ponder what could that really look like now. And then, you know, because everyone's been asking the question, who's actually running the White House? So, you know, and you know, our opinion would be no president has ever run the White House.
No,
but
they're all puppets. Everyone.
But that's just, again, our humble opinion. And, you know, we just throw this out there. So we think you guys would enjoy seeing the movie. We enjoyed seeing the movie. And, you know, just always find it interesting to see certain points play out that can give you something to think about. Is this really happening now? And then again, like I said, what can you do to help? You stay in your lane with what you feel your purpose is, and understand that there's a lot going on, and just put out that co-creative, that simple answer of no, it's not going to go down this way. No, humanity is not going to do this again. No, we've learned everything we needed to do. We want a different experience, and this is what we want it to look like. And add those co-creative skills to a bigger collective torsion field that batters some of this away.
And that it's not going to be this like epic fight to the finish like it's in the movies, even though this movie did kind of display that. It really was.
Well,
that's good for movies. But in reality, if you tried some of that, you're not going to be like Errol Flynn, like Ralph Fiennes was at the end of the movie, you know. And they added in everything into that particular concept, where they did show the reality and the fiction to kind of right side by side. So it's actually a very good depiction of how that would operate. But yes, there are good guys in the background and there are bad guys in the background. But the thing of it is, as we've said also on Interstellar Council, you have to trifurcate yourself away from that, just co-create it all differently. Step outside the politics, step outside all of that, and not just watch it. I'm not saying a neutral observer. I'm saying neutral observer, but I'm not saying a. You can fight in your own way. You can stay in your lane of what you're doing. You know, yeah.
and understanding that it's real and understanding that this really is a part of our reality in its own way, not identical to this or anything, helps you to be able to see things. And again, like I said, the biggest word is no, and mean it with all your might, that it's not going to go down that way. And it's not as easy to do. Most people in with a hope or a question mark under that no. And this is time now to say no with no other option. You don't even see another option. There's it's like no, you know what I mean? So
yeah, there's always an option to say no, even if the bad guys try to tell you there is no such thing as saying no. There's always a saying no.
Well, that is making a choice, and sometimes you do. And deciding not to participate in something is oftentimes good for humanity.
Exactly. And also the fact there was one thing that that they did bring up. They have like the you see a bunch of goats in the movie that are in this like high up precipice, and they make this like cloth from the goat's fabric and all this other stuff. And I'm thinking, okay, that was just blatant like satanic reference right there with the red cloth and the goats. It's like, well, I gave that away. You're gonna see that in the movie. It's like, okay, what you're basically saying? Okay, Satan here, good guys here.
Well, again, some people will inference that, and some people will just say it was a scarf that came from these goats, and there's really no right or wrong, but that's how you saw it.
That's how I saw that, because the symbol of the goat there, but the goats were actually all right.
But
but I just saw that in there, and I saw the two sides, hero and villain, kind of extremely shown in that. So I think we should actually probably end that here before we go. Because or else I'll spoil the movie for everybody, like I did Eternals in that recording. So,
but we do give it thumbs up to watch and to ponder and to look at, and it's a standalone movie. So if you didn't see the other ones, you could certainly see these.
Oh yeah, because it's really set chronologically before those.
Yeah, so it's a standalone movie if you've never seen any of the others.
Okay, just know there's two others out there if you're interested in that. So well, one's the Kingsman and one's Kingsman Golden Circle. So we'll leave it at that. This has been a talk with me and Joanna. It is 12/26/21. We're doing this in the evening. That's why it's dark in here, about 5:26 p.m. So thank you everybody for watching this video on our Patreon or wherever it goes in subscription form. So bye-bye everybody.